sent me to hell, Jason. I'm here to return the favor. Damn.
The hell is that?
It's Simmons!
What are you talking about?
That thing is Simmons! I want you to nail it now!
Welcome, everyone. This is episode 42 of the Comics in Motion podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Chris, and my good friend and co-host is Dave.
Hi, Chris, and hi, guys. Welcome to the Comics in Motion podcast. What we like to do here is we like to review media like movies, TV shows, and games that are based on comic books. Myself, I'll be looking at the media from the perspective of a long-time comic book fan, and my co-host Chris will be reviewing mainly from that media perspective, and we'll walk through our given choice of the week, and we'll meet somewhere in the middle and give our perspectives on it. What we also like to do is we also like to spoil everything. So if you haven't watched our choice of the week, then I suggest you hit that pause button, go and watch it, and then come back and we'll go through it together. Now, Christian Keith Phelps, I've got a bit of a bone to pick with you. So I'd listened to the last episode with yourself and Jamie. Brilliant episode. I thought Jamie was great again. She always is when she comes on. Very well thought out, considered views and perspectives, and, you know, kind of makes us look a bit bad when she has a prepared end quote that we always forget about. But no, brilliant episode. But I almost crashed my car when I heard you send Dark Knight to Atlantis. What's all that about?
Well, Dave, I know you've not spoken to me a lot over this last week, and that obviously confirms why. No, I genuinely watched it again, and obviously the plan was we sort of watched it 10 days earlier than the podcast. So I watched it and I thought, right, I'll watch it. I've not watched it for a few years. I had it all on. Me and Sam watched it, and I actually, to be fair, I got a little mini review from Sam, but it was one of them where she slagged it off the first time she ever see. Let me tell you quickly. The first time I ever watched it, she said, "Yeah, it's a good film, but we don't have to go on a bit." She went, "We've got about 40 minutes there. It just could have ended it, not like, because obviously she's not into our type of films and stuff." So that was her movie review. Now I enjoy it, absolutely enjoyed it, but I still think, hand on heart, Heath Ledger is an Asgard all day long, but the Harvey Dent should have been there a lot longer. I just think Jamie said it, and it's something that you say a lot. She's right. It's just that Harvey Dent was used as just a little plot thing to move the plot along to sort of banish Batman for the Dark Knight Rises, which I thought is unfair, really. I think Two-Face is a character that shouldn't just be used for 20 minutes. And it wasn't as convincing as when I first watched it. I love the film. There's no doubt about it. I also love it. But The Dark Knight Rises is my favourite, Dave. And after watching it again, I was thinking, yeah, it's still my favourite.
Yeah. You have sent about 10 other things to Asgard, though, not just Dark Knight Rises. But, I mean, I seem to remember as well, you were dissing my man Heath Ledger and saying Jack Nicholson was a better Joker than him. Are you gonna stick by that statement?
Wait till they get a load of me. No, I take that back. I did say after the podcast, I was getting a bit giddy, I think, last time, a bit excited. Genuinely, Heath Ledger's the man, without a doubt. And having read the backstory to the fact that he based him on like Johnny Rotten and Pete Doherty and stuff, because I was trying to explain to Jamie last week about who Pete Doherty was and all that. Really interesting the way he did it, and I can totally see that. And even getting some of the facts and stuff that I've been doing this week, the fact that he spent 6 weeks isolated, and there was rumours that before he played the Joker, that's one of the reasons why he ended up sort of overdosing on drugs, because he was within his own mind for weeks on end trying to get the Joker's sort of psyche and all this. But his family confirmed that wasn't true. But there's a lot of stuff with Heath Ledger, which is so much respect for what he did, Dave, pulling off that character. He's the best one, without a doubt. But I've got to say, the look of Joaquin Phoenix is looking pretty good on a slight tangent. I've got a feeling that that's going to be another Joker in the bag, I think. Very much along the same lines.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. I mean, if he gets 80-90% of what Ledger gave, I'd be happy with that. I think for me, I mean, obviously I'd gone through the whole rewatch, and it just gets better every time I see it. I can't think, for me, there's a better villain portrayal at all than that Heath Ledger Joker. I can't think that there's a better villain in movies that I've seen.
Yeah, he is. He's brilliant. And to be fair, he makes the film, Dave. I think.
Yeah, and it's interesting what you say about Two-Face, because I think for me, I'd gladly jettison Two-Face out of there. I mean, you could create a bit of conflict without his character, I think, and you could have saved him maybe for the third. Now, if you consider the whole arc, over that trilogy, he kind of has to be there, and he has to play that role for what happens at the beginning of the third, or kind of it's what happens in between the second and the third, isn't it?
Yeah,
with the whole Dent Act. But no, I'd quite happily add more Joker in there. But I think Jamie said it on the episode that every one of his lines was fantastic. And the only thing I'll give to Jack Nicholson is his line about you wouldn't hit a guy with glasses, would you? I think that's still one of my favourites. But no, it's Heath Ledger all day. And I think I remember saying to you when I first saw that Joaquin Phoenix image pop up on Twitter, I thought it was a fan thing because it was so much like the Heath Ledger image, and so I just thought, someone's got a picture of Joaquin Phoenix and then done a bit of photoshopping on it. So they're definitely channeling that Dark Knight, aren't they? Oh,
without doubt. And on a slight thing, today's fact, as we record the podcast, was a real good one. I didn't know this, Dave, as someone who, Batman mad and like you are, Superman mad and stuff, is that Mr. Reese, it was actually they were hiding the fact that he could potentially have been the Joker. So his name is Mr. Reese, as in mystery, but obviously it's Enigma, isn't it? Like when we did so that's where they're getting at that this Mr. Reese, because he tries to out Batman a few times, the Riddler. And that's what this was about. This was for all the fans, really, what he did and stuff. So they were toying with potentially whether they were going to use that guy. I'm not sure because he was a nobody, and I've never really seen him in anything since. Mm-hmm. But that's what that little tease was on that segment. So that was quite interesting. That was something I just didn't even see until I'd done.
Yeah. I saw you post that one. I didn't know that one at all. So it is fun, isn't it? When it's more fun probably for me because you're the one who goes out there digging for all these fun facts. But I just like all the listeners and everything. I just see them pop up and it's like, oh, brilliant! I didn't know that. So I do really enjoy those fun facts you put out.
No, I enjoy it myself. It's really good. Now, Dave, reading the program notes, there's been an absolute shock that myself and you are going to be almost crying into our back capes that Marvel have cancelled Iron Fist. Absolutely. Oh.
Well, I think it's Netflix, isn't it, that's cancelled it. And, so when we set about creating the podcast, I want to make sure, and we discussed this, haven't we? We want to make sure it's broadly positive, what we talk about. And I've watched that second series of Iron Fist, and I'd seen all the build up and the hype, and forget series one. This one's really good, and it was a hard watch, to be quite honest. Which is why,
bad.
Yeah, I don't think right now it's not on our schedule to go through that series two, and I think there's so many other good stuff. In fact, so let me take that back slightly. Given that we did Howard the Duck a couple of episodes ago, there's too much stuff at the top and the bottom that's fun to kind of go through, and I hope for people to listen to, than to focus on stuff that's plain mediocre and just around the middle. So it wasn't terrible, but it just wasn't memorable. I thinking back, can't tell you what happened.
No, I mean, I give up on about episode 10 of the first series, which is stupid because there's only about 3 episodes left. And I've never watched it since. And then contrasting that, as we both know, on Friday, Daredevil Series 3's out, which is going to be, without even looking, absolutely amazing. We've said it a couple of episodes now. So it's a complete contrast, Dave. And even for Iron Fist, they got the Luke Cage and Daredevil fight choreographer in because that's what he got slagged off for him. The little bits I've seen, and I've not watched any of the second series, it doesn't look any better, to be honest.
It's marginally better. But let's call the elephant out in the room, right? Danny Rand, from day one, he's just been miscast.
Yeah.
You know, he's a good-looking bloke, but he's never carrying off that he's this martial arts badass, is he?
No.
And I think, you consider, what's his name? Stephen Amell from Arrow.
Yeah.
Someone like that, to me, would make a really good Danny Rand. And you could kind of believe that he could, he can carry off operating in that corporate world, being someone with a lot of money, but also, able to tackle it down at the street level. And just for me, I just never bought him as Danny Rand. And so, I'm gutted because there's a few great runs of Iron Fist, the Immortal Iron Fist, and they're really, really good. Some of my favorite stories, and it's just all kind of ruined it for me. So I don't know, maybe at some point it'll be rebooted, or who knows. But I think I know that there probably are some people out there who are a bit gutted that there won't be a series 3, but I think it's fair to say me and you aren't two of them.
No, not at all. I think for completion, I need to watch it because I've just recently watched Luke Cage season 2 and absolutely enjoyed that a lot. The music's fantastic in it as well, but I really enjoyed that.
Yep.
Better than the first series, if I'm being honest. It wasn't as like there's always a bit of a lull, like there even was with the Punisher one, that it was a bit too fleshed out, I thought, the Punisher. But towards the end, it really picks up the last 3 or 4 episodes. But I need to watch it for that, just the completion side of it. And Jessica Jones, because I've never finished Jessica Jones. So they need to, whether we review them, it's just a personal thing more than anything. Mm-hmm. It's whether I've got the grind to go through that. I don't know.
I think, like you say, for completeness, we will tackle it at some point, but just not right now. We should definitely do Jessica Jones, actually. That one is a really good series.
Yeah, it is.
So I tell you what, even better than that, though, news this week. So production's kicked off for the HBO series of Watchmen. And I am so excited for this. I mean, Watchmen is just, it's right up there with one of the best graphic novels ever. Another classic Alan Moore. The movie that we had wasn't bad, and it did a decent job of portraying that on the screen. But the thing is, there's so many layers to Watchmen. I think it's going to fit a kind of HBO series a lot better than just a movie. So I'm really excited about that. We got to see a still. I've actually got no idea who it is. I mean, some speculation it might be Rorschach, but I don't know. Just excited that it's getting going, and I can't wait for that to come on. And I just hope it's going to live up to my expectations.
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen the film, Dave, so that's definitely one we've got to do. I've never watched it. Watchmen, so
oh my god,
I know. I get me cold.
Episode 42, and right, I've just last night rejigged the schedule. And I think before the end of the year, we might have to tackle that one. If you go into it with the Superman 2 mindset, you're probably going to be wondering, what is this? But because it really is quite different. But yeah, we definitely have to do that one. Probably sooner. This was going to be next year, but maybe I'll have a look at the schedule again and maybe see if we can bump that one up a bit.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's just one of them, Dave. Like I've said to you, I've very much been mainstream over the years, and there is stuff that I think I've started to watch it, but never done anything with it. Like one of them where you put it on and it's like I can't get into it or whatever. So yeah, it is on the radar. I've just not done anything with it. So yeah, good stuff. So Dave, what are we reviewing today?
So today we're going to be looking at the 90s movie Spawn. And I really wanted to tackle this one, not because it's a great movie, but it's quite some of the comics background is quite pivotal in terms of what's happened in the comics world there. So with that lovely segue there.
Very nice. Like you've done this before, Dave.
Shall we go into a bit of comics background then?
Let's go.
So Spawn first appeared in his own self-titled comic, Spawn #1, back in May 1992, and was created by Todd McFarlane. And it was around about this time that there was a bit of a revolution in the comics world. Now, what you had, McFarlane himself, he'd been around comics for a while, and he was a bit of a rock star. You know, he's very well known, and in particular on his Spider-Man work, some of the highest ever issues are from Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man #1. And basically, you had these huge numbers of comic sales due in no part due to the speculator market. So people were going crazy over these new issues and #1s and getting a bit giddy about the idea that these were investments into the future. So it just seeped into the public knowledge that actually comics, rather than being this disposable media, you know, being these things that you pass around between your friends and then scrunch them up in your back pocket and then throw them away when you basically none of the pages would hold together anymore. Some of the older comics started to go for big money. And so people sort of thought, oh, well, if you know, the first appearance of Superman, Action Comics #1, if that fetched a lot of money, if I jump on board and buy something like Spawn #1, in 20, 30 years' time, I'm going to retire off that, which was a tad misplaced. But that's kind of what people thought at this time. Now, you've got that. So you've got the huge numbers of comic sales, but also what Marvel and DC are doing, you've got a lot of the images, a lot of the artists' work appearing on all kinds of different merchandise, on clothes, on mugs, basically everything, you know. And so the artists were just getting paid their regular salary. So when I was talking about Howard the Duck a few weeks ago, I was talking about this work for hire term. So the artists, you know, these rock star artists would just work for hire. So the fact that, you know, Marvel and DC could put out these images and make millions and millions off this artwork, they weren't seeing anything of that. Now, what actually happened, a number of them got together, you know, and again, we're talking about the top talent in the industry at that time, and basically decided to set up their own company called Image Comics. And part of their charter was the creators would own the work as opposed to Image. So Image wouldn't own any of the characters or anything that was created. It's almost like it'd be like an umbrella company. And within all the partners that set up Image Comics, they agreed that they wouldn't interfere with each other's work. So they were kind of left, you know, you had this group, but they left each other alone. So they didn't interfere either creatively over what they were doing or financially. You know, so you had these little standalone companies within Image Comics. Now, this has had a massive impact on the industry, whereas before that, again, you had this work for hire, you had artists and writers being, pardon my French, but, you know, screwed over for, you know, all these great kind of characters that they brought to the public, and then saw nothing of it really financially, apart from, you know, a paltry salary. So basically, this was all going on, and as part of this excitement, I mean, it was huge news at the time. So as part of Todd McFarlane's part of Image, they brought to the table Spawn #1 as part of those early Image days. And I mentioned about the speculator market at this time in the early 90s, and Spawn #1 sold around 1.7 million copies.
Wow.
To put it into context, 1.7 million, to put it into context there, if we look at the top selling comic for last month, so September 2018, was Return of Wolverine, #1. Okay, so again, #1s tend to get quite a bump, which is why Marvel and DC put them out every month. Well, not quite every month, but yeah, so Return of Wolverine. So in the comics, Wolverine's been dead for a little while, but now he's got better, so he's back. That sold an estimated 260,000 copies. So that was the top selling comic last month. So 260,000 last month, 1.7 million for Spawn issue #1. Now, I'm sure we'll go back at some point and we'll talk about the 90s again, because a lot of people don't look back at it favorably. You know, a lot of it was the artist over the writers, so you had a lot of style over substance. But there were some fantastic there was some fantastic artwork there as well. But yeah, so a really, really exciting time for comics. But then kind of after that, there was a little bit of a fallout, and it certainly nearly put Marvel into bankruptcy because all their top talent just walked out. You know, before that, X-Men was just absolutely killing it, and all their top X-Men talent went off and joined Image. So, yeah, absolutely, you know, pivotal moment and a bit of a revolution in comics. So, Chris, how about the movie background?
Yes, very interesting, actually, Dave. Really well with the amount of comics. That's just amazing. Talk about making your money back and some.
Yep, and I think all these people who bought Spawn issue number 1 didn't stop to think, hang about, if everyone else is buying these, how much is it actually going to be worth?
Yeah.
So I'm sure there's lots of stories. I mean, there's Spawn issue number 1. I can't think what that would be worth now, but maybe £1 or something. I might be surprised there. I haven't gone back and looked at it. But things like, you know, there was Death of Superman, which was huge at the time. And again, everyone goes out, you know, buys 20 copies of it, but doesn't stop to think, well, hang about, if everyone's buying 20 copies, do you think, you know, you need a bit of scarcity, don't you, in the marketplace? So Action Comics number 1, no one was collecting then. No one was keeping in tip-top mint condition. That's why it's worth a lot. Not, you know, because there's a surplus in the market.
Oh, it's interesting, isn't it? Really good.
Yeah.
Movie background, Dave. Thank you for that. Film came out in 1997, directed and co-written by Mark A.Z. Dippy, I think, or Deepy. The film stars Michael J. White. Now, I mentioned Michael J. White last week. It's almost as if we've done these reviews on purpose, but we haven't. Michael J. White.
Chris, was he something to do with Right Said Fred? I think his partner in crime might have been Deeply.
Dave, just let me carry on. I'm not even acknowledging that. That is terrible.
I'll get my coat.
I was thinking Michael J. White. Like said, that was a whole segue we didn't need to. I'm not even going to go down. But yeah, I get, you know, Mark A. Dippy, what he's called.
Dippy. Deeply and Dippy.
Deeply and Dippy, yeah.
All right, sorry about that. Right, I'll get my coat, like I said.
Yeah, get that coat. Don't ever darken my door again. Right, so it stars Michael J. White, who at the time was an unknown actor. To me and you, he's Gambol out of The Dark Knight. He's the gangster whose henchman gets the pencil through his nose from the Joker. And I mentioned it last week with Jamie that why he's not used in The Dark Knight, because he's an absolute, like, an 8th dan martial arts expert, Dave. He's got a list of B movies as long as your arm that I've pretty much watched most of them, because he's absolutely fantastic. I mean, now he's early 50s and he's still shredded, ripped up. It's like a Van Damme type guy. You know, he's absolutely still does all karate, martial arts, Thai boxing, everything. So you name it, he's been in. And I find it really interesting that he got the lead in this film. This was one of the first films for an African-American actor to portray. Obviously, the year later, we get Wesley Snipes in Blade, but this film's overlooked. And a lot of it was to do with the fact that he's mainly wearing a mask and he's got the prosthetics on of, you know, obviously being burnt and having the acid thing. But he was actually the flag bearer. So even though I mentioned it in the Blade review that Wesley Snipes it wasn't actually him. Michael J. White deserves a lot of props. I think he doesn't get it because the film was a flop as such, which I'll get into. Now, they originally started with a lower than average budget of 20 million for this film, but it then grew to about 45 million to try and do it a bit of justice. It lasted 63 days, the schedule. I've said that schedule. Let me go to the next bit. The original cut of Spawn is an R-rated film, which is what they were going to go with. But they then decided to cut it down, which a lot of people have slagged off and said that's one of the reasons the film to actually watch ratings-wise was not a looker or any sort of real story. So they ended up editing it down to a PG-13 rating, which, again, is not what you want. Now, I remember we reviewed Judge Dredd which is exactly what they did with Stallone, didn't they? Stallone wanted it to be a bit more sort of hammed up and everything, but they actually said the more grittier violence that they'd actually filmed for an R-rated would have done it justice. Now, you can buy, and I'm sure it's out there somewhere, the director's cut with the extra 45 minutes of footage, a bit like Batman v Superman, where that extra footage puts a bit more meat on the story and gives it a bit more of a plausible sort of outcome. So I'd be interesting to see that. And when I was researching this, I was going to mention that, but it was hard enough just to find a copy for us both to watch, so let alone the director's copy, Dave. So I would be interested to watch it. Money-wise, box office-wise, it grossed 87 million. So it made over 40 million in profits. That's a worldwide gross. First weekend, it made 20 million in the US box office. And it was only Air Force One with Harrison Ford that stripped it. But by the third week, it had just dropped like an absolute stone. It went down by about 55%. So it wasn't well received. Critically, again, it's not as bad as Howard the Duck, but on Rotten Tomatoes, on Rotten Tomatoes, it's 18%. Now, Howard was 15%. And then on IMDb, it's got a rating of like 3.4, so it's not the best. Actual cinema goers reviews, it's rated as a C+, so it's in the middle, really. Most of them, people sort of enjoyed it, but, it is what it is, I suppose. When it comes to, it actually won a couple of awards, Dave, which is quite surprising. It won at the Saturn Awards, it won for Best Makeup for Michael J. White. Michael J. White won Best Newcomer. Best Supporting Actor was John Leguizamo, who plays the stupid clown. We'll get into that in a minute. And then Teresa Randall, who plays his wife, she had Favourite Horror Supporting Actress, which I was looking for this in certain sections on one of the apps I've got, and it came under horror, which I've got a bit of an issue with, but we'll get to that in the review. He's also won a couple of awards for the special effects as well. The animatronics and some of the special effects were lauded for its time. So the director's cut mentioned earlier, that was released in 98 on VHS, and there is a DVD version, 45 minutes extra. So, like I say, it'd be interesting to see that. From this, and because of the problems they've had, they've been in development since 1998, a sequel, Dave. Now, it is in full development now, and it's at the stage where they're going to start filming, but it's going to star Jamie Foxx and Jeremy Renner. Yeah. So that's going to be quite interesting. But it's took nearly 20 years. Well, it has took 20 years for it to even become something. Michael J. White has showed interest of playing Spawn again, and he was sort of touted for the role, but they felt that they needed a bigger actor. So obviously Jamie Foxx is a bigger actor. He's got that star pulling power. Now, Michael J. White, and it's unbelievable, Dave, he's 52 years old, looks exactly the same as he does in Spawn. Into 1996, 97, because when I watched this, he just looks exactly the same as he does in Batman. Obviously, that was 2008. He doesn't age. He's just got them fantastic genes, so he could still get away with it. And with him being such an active martial arts expert, and he's still got a six-pack and everything, you couldn't tell the difference between the two. It's quite eerie how well he looks, this guy. So,
has he got a picture of himself in the attic?
Well, he might. Well, very good. Yeah. You've done me twice now with this. But yeah, so that is going to be coming out in 2019. It's penciled in for it anyway. So when they start production, I'm not sure, but it is tentatively in for back end of this year, early next. So we'll see how that goes. There was even talk, Dave, and you're going to laugh at this, there was even talk of Shaquille O'Neal playing him.
Oh my word! No, I'm happy with Jamie Foxx there. I think I'm pretty excited about this movie that's going to come out next year. I mean, we can get into what we think about the movie, but like I say, Spawn was massive at the time in the early 90s there, and I think now I think they could do a really good job, and it's definitely one that we need to watch in that first week.
No, I agree. I totally agree, and I also think. I always remember seeing the Spawn VHSs, Dave, and even the DVDs towards the late 90s thinking, I need to watch this. Like video shops were still going, want the Blockbuster and all that. And I never, ever watched it because it sort of was up my alley thinking, well, this is superhero. I knew what Spawn was about, but you don't dot the I's and, cross the T's. It just sort of got waylaid. And when you mentioned doing it, I was like, oh, yeah, good call. It's something I've wanted to stumble upon. So... Yeah.
Before we go into that, so let's just give a shout out to thecomicsbolt.com. So we mentioned it in the last episode that we've just joined this collective. So basically this is a news and review site. So we'll cover comic book reviews, news, movies and TV, and Comics in Motion is very much part of that family. So we'll be looking at bringing to the table, in particular, the movie reviews there. It's really geared towards, there's too much clickbait out there. So, it's not about that. It's not about trying to get you to click through and then sell on the advertising or what have you. And it's a really inclusive group as well. So, some of the environments can be a little bit toxic. People are us geeks, we like to show off a bit at times, and it's not like that at all. So get yourself over there if you want to find a bit of latest comic book news and reviews. We're also part of the Britpod scene, which is a collective of British independent podcasts as well. And what we wanted to start doing is, there's so many good independent podcasts in that collective. We just wanted to share with you, a minute or two just of each of those. So we'll be back with you right after this break.
Hi, I'm Holly.
And I'm Gemma, and together we are the co-hosts of the podcast Which Murderer. Each week we discuss 2 murders, and we try and focus more on the victim's perspective.
Oh my god, that's not who I thought was going to die.
Let's just blame it all on Tom Cruise.
Yeah, I'm just math stumps me at every turn, even in dismemberment.
We all know she was cut in half.
He had projectile pooped.
Oh no!
The entire room.
Will they ever get along?
God damn it. Get along, eat an ice cream cone.
You're going to make so many enemies, and I love it.
How many times do I have to say, if you're going to murder people, don't keep a diary?
Don't keep a diary. I really didn't want to be frozen to death. When were you born, honey?
No, I'm not telling you. I don't like the thought of somebody who's selling ice cream being that angry inside. And then we have ourselves a little debate at the end about which murderer we would want to kill us if we had to choose.
If we had to choose.
It's a game of which would you rather.
Exactly. And if you fancy playing that along with us, you can find us on Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes. You can also listen to us on Audioboom and our website, witchmurderer.com.
And you can always get in contact with us at Twitter and Instagram at witchmurderer, and also witchmurderer@gmail.com.
So hopefully you'll be listening to us soon.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Okay, so Chris, we're going to go through again a couple of iTunes reviews, and again, we'll have a little bit of a game and guess at how these people might sound, how our listeners might sound. So, do you want to take us away with the first one?
Yeah, well, the first one is by Killer Base. I'll do the title of their review in the accent I believe Killer Base has, okay? Detailed comic movie reviews. The guys put a lot of effort into detailing the movie they're reviewing with background info and facts from the comic source. If you like comics and movies, then this is for you. Thanks, Killer Base.
Brilliant. So, what's that guy's name from Smokey and the Bandit, and who's in James Bond as well? General Hogg, was it? Or...
Yeah. No, he's not in Smokey and the Bandit. He's out of a Man with a Golden Gun. I know what you mean. The sheriff.
So, the fact that we're looking at the UK store, it'd be interesting how he'd go on. I wonder how he'd go down, sort of meeting him at the pub.
I just want to thank Killer Base for that review. Now, Dave, what about yourself?
Now, my review is by WDSWJJ. So, kind of no idea. There's far too many consonants there. So, it's either it stands for something or someone's just sat on the keyboard. Yep. But I thought I'd go for a little bit. I was inspired a bit by a quote that you gave a couple of episodes ago for this one. Thorsome, We're here. Terrible pun aside, this show is terrific fun and a strong recommend whether you're a comic whiz or novice. The hosts have a great chemistry and tremendous passion and knowledge. So it ticks all the boxes for what makes an awesome podcast. Which I think, could almost be a voice.
So I've gone for a redneck and you've gone for a Geordie.
Well, yeah, I think the nuance in it, Chris. I think maybe Whitley Bay, not Newcastle. So.
Very good, Dave. I wasn't expecting that at all.
It's just that we're here.
The thing is, right, anyone who's listening is just like these two are just narcissists, aren't they? I can't swear. We absolutely laugh. Absolutely. Oh, so funny.
Our plan to alienate everyone
who listens
is well underway.
Yeah. Well, actually, any of the listeners, if the voices are close to your own, can you get in touch? I mean, the one I did last week, if you sound like one of the characters out of Monty Python, then please tell us. Fantastic, Dave.
To win the lottery, there's something like a 1 in 14 million chance, isn't there? I think we've got more chance of winning the lottery. But yeah, if you do hear your own voice and go, crikey, they've nailed it, we'd love to hear from you. But honestly, we're not really expecting it.
No, not at all. Not at all. And I know. We've got to do this every week now. It's so funny.
Oh dear. Should we go into our review?
Let's go.
So, Chris, never let it be said that our journalistic integrity is not tip top after those reviews there. So. So let's get into the movie. So,
do we have to?
It starts off. We start off, and again, you know what? I'll let you into a bit of a secret. So I had a bit of a play around with the schedule last night. Got to put Conan in there. I'm not letting you get away. We can't let 2018 escape without watching Arnie's pièce de résistance, Conan.
Okay.
And if we had have watched that when we ended up watching Judge Dredd, you'd have seen that actually this opening bit, it's a little bit Conan the Barbarian. And the guy who's speaking was doing a quite a poor James Earl Jones impression as far as I was concerned. Did that come across to you?
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, pretty awful, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So, because you hadn't seen Conan, I wasn't sure if you'd pick up on that, just coming into it fresh, where James Earl Jones does actually do the intro. But that whole, the battle between heaven and hell has waged eternal, their armies fueled by souls harvested on earth. It's like, oh, come on. And then you find out later in the film, it's this white guy.
Yeah.
What's all that about? You don't speak like that, surely.
Yeah, it was just random as heck, wasn't it, at the start? It really was. It just, It was
a bit of a strange start, wasn't it? Really, really strange start. And actually, let me throw out the first general observation. I felt this whole movie was just a bit fragmented and random.
Yes.
And
it was.
Yeah, that just thrown in at the start there. And like I say, unfortunately, I just couldn't get past the poor imitation of James Earl Jones. But then we get to meet Al Simmons, don't we? So he's a Black Ops guy. We don't really get to know him that well, but he's obviously part of this force reconnaissance, and he works for Michael Sheen. So playing James Wynn, who's the head of this government agency which Simmons works for. And basically, he gets him to infiltrate this biochemicals weapon plant in North Korea and basically offs him. So what did you make to this whole opening scene and the introduction to Michael J. White's character, as you pointed out earlier, Al Simmons?
Very much run of the mill, wasn't it? It was the old cliche stuff in it. He's a badass sort of thing. Obviously, we've got the double cross where he's trying to take out these supposed terrorists or whatever they are, aren't they? And then he's got like a heat-seeking missile, and we get all the old, just the same old stuff in it with it, pressing a load of buttons to do a certain thing, and it comes up on the screen with some pretty poor computer work, a homing device and all this stuff. And he fires the rockets off, blows up this private jet, private jet. But obviously, there's a lot of innocent people in there. And it just seems to flick too easily. Like the next scene after he's sort of killed and decimated all these people is then getting picked up for work and patting his dog on the head. Like he's done nothing. He's just killed like 26 people, but nothing is going to stop him from patting his dog and say, look after the house or whatever he says. It's just, I don't know. It was a bit stiff. He's acting as much as I like Michael J. White even for his martial arts skills and some of his later films, because they are B-movie-ish. How he got this role, I'm not sure, Dave, because it was quite an important film at the time, wasn't it? I know the budget wasn't massive, but he's literally playing it. He's almost playing like a RoboCop type character, but without wearing a suit. Even at the start, it's really robotic and pretty poor. And that guy with the old classic 1990s goatees, mate, Teddy Fitzgerald, how generic could you get? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's awful. And then, he's chatting away to him like it's nothing, like the photocopy's broke in work or something. And he's like, well, it went wrong, that ops thing, didn't it? And you're like, what the heck is this? Like,
It was all a bit Miami Vice or something, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's like a TV show more than a movie.
Yeah, because to be fair, as a big fan of Lethal Weapon, it felt like in Lethal Weapon 1 and 2 when Martin Riggs, Mel Gibson's character, picks up Murtaugh and he comes out all flustered, like, oh, let's get me to... It was like that. It was just a bit thing. And obviously we get introduced to his wife as well, don't we, Wanda? And, it's like, she's saying, like, get him home safely or something along them lines. It was something pretty forgetful. But, I don't know, Dave. It was just... it was definitely at this point I'm thinking, Dave Horrocks, you've done it again.
Hold my beer. So I will say, I'd watched this when it came out, and I was quite honestly hugely disappointed in it. On this rewatch, sometimes when we watch things back and we have good memories of them and we watch them back and think, actually, this was pretty terrible. I'm looking back at it with the rose-tinted specs. I will say I don't think this one got worse for me.
No, and I'll be honest with you, Dave. I haven't watched, obviously, originally when it came out in the 90s, but I'll be honest with you, it's nowhere near, even revealing my hand, it's nowhere near Howard the Duck. Nothing can beat that thing. Because I think the premise of what this is about and the actual fact that it's a proper superhero as such, or an anti-hero, and the world that it's created, it's not actually the Spawn that bugs me about this film. His story arc sort of has I can't say makes sense because obviously it's totally unrealistic, but it has that sort of thing where you are sort of rooting for him, aren't you? He's a downtrodden guy. Obviously this whole thing at the start is how he gets killed, and we realise that we meet Jason Wynn, who's his boss, which is Martin Sheen, and he's obviously double-crossed him, hasn't he? And they end up on this ops thing. But I will say, Dave, that the henchwoman, Jessica Priest, she is rather, you would say, a tasty dish, shall we say.
Well, I tend to reserve tasty dish for the blokes.
All right, okay, fair enough.
So unless you saw a camera angle that I didn't, I'd probably say she's a lovely lady.
Okay, lovely lady. But yeah, she's very pretty.
Melinda Clark. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah, it's very pretty. But then, obviously, Simmons gets shot by Wynn and realises he's double-crossed him. And then, Priest shoots him. And then Simmons hits the deck. And then Wynn comes over and sets him on fire. And they fire this, obviously, petroleum stuff on. And it blows up the whole chemical plant. Now, I thought the effects of him being set on fire were pretty good, actually, Dave, even to this day and age. The way his skin and that, changed and stuff, the way that. But I actually had no problem with that. It wasn't like I was going, oh my gosh. It wasn't like that. It genuinely looked okay. Very much on the lines of Blade and stuff, when obviously he sets that guy on fire continually, the sort of cowboy guy with a beard who he has a the whole film's about him chopping his hands off and that. So I had no problem with it. What I had a problem with was there was no context of the fact that he gets set on fire with this, supposed Chinese or whatever, hidden chemical plant and all this sort of hidden research. He then goes into into hell, doesn't he? Like in an abyss, a fire abyss. But I couldn't work out how he was meant to get there because there was no sort of build up to the fact that he was in a world where, weird things live and all that. It was just like a standard American lifestyle. Obviously he's a special ops guy, but it didn't make any sense to me why he would then be transported down to hell as a burnt crisp of a man sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, I think the writers and directors didn't do a great job of explaining anything. Like you say, it's kind of it's just fragmented in it and just a bit random. So, you get the impression that he's down there because he's actually committed all these atrocities. He's just been following orders, but he's not been. He's been taking all his orders from Wynn, and I will just say, I think, Martin Sheen. I kind of want to say he's a very good actor. He's certainly a legend, but by God, he's terrible in this. I mean, talk about a two-dimensional villain.
I mean, if it's not bad enough, the hair dye he's got on, it's the, well, come with me, Simmons. And he speaks like this all the way through, like he's Bane or something. It's pretty awful. Whatever direction he was going for, it was definitely the wrong one, Dave. He took a left turn off the side of a cliff, as far as I'm concerned, with his acting. He was absolutely atrocious in this.
I think he might have been watching Nick Fury, to be honest. This was 97, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Fury was 96. Might have been watching that. And to be quite honest, he is a bit of a legend, but I think this portrayal, would fit into Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. quite well. Yeah,
he's definitely one of them ones where he must not even watch it when he looks back on his career and go, well, I did create this sort of thing, because to me, he I think I don't know, we're probably only about, film-wise, you're probably about 15, 20 minutes in, aren't you? I have no problem with Michael J. White with Spawn. I genuinely don't. I think because he's this muscle-bound sort of martial arts expert and he's supposed to be portraying this mean and moody, commando, and obviously he's just been set on fire now, so he realises that, his life's pretty much over or whatever. He's not sure what's going on. It's the people around him, the characters around Spawn ruin the film. Like Martin Sheen, like that thingy priest, and especially, we haven't even mentioned him yet.
Let's. I know what you're going to say.
Yeah,
I think we'll probably be on the same page there. But yeah, so he ends up in hell, doesn't he? With and then he's confronted by this demon who offers him a deal, and he just wants to get back to his wife, doesn't he, Wanda? And so he says, yeah, I'll be your servant and lead your army. Whatever, I just need to get back to Wanda. So he accepts the deal, and then he's sort of sent back to Earth. Now, when he gets back to Earth, 5 years have passed since he's died off, and his wife's been married off to his best mate, so that's got to stick in the craw a little bit, hasn't it? And and they're living together with his daughter as well, just to twist the knife a little bit more. And you kind of get, you'd seen a little bit in the shadows, haven't you? The clown-like demon, so who we find out is called the Violator. And so he sort of befriends, or he pretends he's like Spawn's guide, essentially. And I think this is where I think I know what you're going to say, but go on. Do you want to comment on the Violator?
Yeah, well, put it this way, Dave. I definitely wanted to violate that little so-and-so, because he's probably...
Really? That's taken a sinister twist.
yeah.
Are you sure you...
Yeah, not in that sort of violation way. I just wanted to get a rather big bar and just crack him across the head, because he's got to be one of the worst characters. It might not be the worst film, Dave, and I'm not saying it. He's got to be one of the most annoying, horrible characters I've ever come across, and not for the right reasons. It was just so generic and terrible. He's supposed to be Simmons' daughter's party. We find out, obviously, she's 5 years later, she's married to this Fitzgerald. They've got a kids' party. How has he got the gig as the clown at this party? I want to know, because he's the most creepiest, nastiest guy who's verging on Operation U-Tree type stakes here. There's definitely got to be an investigation into his search history. And it's like, he shouldn't even be there. But then he sort of sees Simmons there, doesn't he? And he's got yellow teeth. He's like a little stumpy, fat clown sort of thing who's waddling around. And it's just like this. He's good. And then he takes Simmons away because obviously Wanda's there and he's hiding his face. But he's like, he's pulling these undies out, going, oh, look at these. I've followed through and all. And I'm like, what is the point of this? It's not even to a PG-13 audience, which he obviously must have heavily edited it to get to that rating. Nobody is going to find that funny, Dave, or like toilet jokes. There's certain things you can get away with, isn't there? Like, say, something like, I know it's a total comedy, but American Pie, Stifler's mum, and then you've got the other, his mate, some, SH1T break, his mate who has a bit of his mum and all that. And that's a joke because they put laxatives and all that. Them sort of stuff, you can get away with that because you haven't got that visual thing. But this was just like, you're trying too hard to create this desolate, crude world. And he's got to be the worst character I've ever come across. Every time we come on, I just wanted to punch the screen, Dave. And I'm not being funny. It was so obvious, and we'll get to it later, he wasn't just a clown. From the minute he was introduced, I knew which way this was going. He was trying to be like it, but basically with the S and the H in front of him.
Yeah, so I remember again from the first watch, hated him.
Yeah.
Again, just a ridiculous character. And again, that's why I'm kind of excited about what's going to come next year with the new movie, because I just think this was a massive misfire. It wasn't funny. It's trying to be kind of disgusting and repulsive. It's a bit sort of played for laughs, but like I say, not being funny. It's just, I hated the character as well, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, and I know obviously formula-wise, Dave, you get a lot of these films, and this is going back obviously to 1996, 97, obviously when it came out. It's a formula that's worked where sometimes the supporting characters steal the show. The fun, like you look at something like Guardians of the Galaxy, you've got, Star-Lord is the main man really, and Peter Quill and that, and then you've got everyone off it, but Drax was the one who stole the show, Dave Bautista, and obviously... Mm-hmm. You've then got Gru and all. So you've got, I know you've got 4 or 5, and it's a different era and stuff, and it's a different tone of film. But even so, it was like he was trying to steal the show, but he didn't. I think personally, one of the reasons that the film scored so low is because of him alone. Mm-hmm. Because the other ones you can get away with is like B-movie baddies, like you alluded to. You're right, Nick Fury type baddies, the harmless baddies. But this guy is just. He's just awful. There's no, one minute he's trying to help Spawn. The next minute we know obviously he's double-crossed. Then he's double-crossed him again. And it's just like, I just don't even want to keep up with this. It was just, yeah. I could spend probably the whole podcast talking about that little.
Well, let's move on from him for a second then, because we meet the other chap, don't we? Cogliostro. I think that's probably how you pronounce it. Cogliostro. Coggles, we'll call him. So he's a fellow Hellspawn, isn't he? So, the bad James Earl Jones kind of impressionist. And, again, we find out that he's kind of giving Simmons some of these hints about, what he should be doing. So we're not quite sure. So again, a little bit like Whistler, say, in Blade the year after, you get the feeling that he's going to help him. But actually, as the film goes on, he doesn't really, again, it's part of this fragmented feel of it. He doesn't feel like a mentor. He just floats in every now and then and just says something cryptic and then floats back out again. So, but anyway, so he'd been a Hellspawn, but he'd successfully freed his soul. And so he now fights on behalf of heaven. And then again floats off and starts doing something else. But anyway, so Simmons learns that Wynn, he's a weapons dealer. He's developed this biological weapon called Heat 16, and during a reception, Spawn's pretty pretty agitated. So he attacks Wynn, and he kills off Jessica, which, you know, a bit sad about. So that was the end of her in the movie. And but before that, I mean, she'd shot him, and I wasn't doing it. Oh yeah, sort of count, but I'm sure he said it multiple times. You know, like something had happened, so he gets shot, doesn't he? And then you can see he's been shot, and it all starts to heal up. And it was so cheesy, to be honest, where it's just like, oh yeah. And again, he said it the first time, and it grated a little bit the first time. But then I'm sure I heard it again. I'm like, oh, come on, you know, too much.
Yeah, too much and too less of. I mean, the thing is as well, though, Dave. What I found a bit bizarre when Jessica gets killed by Spawn, because obviously she shoots him, he heals himself, doesn't he, and sort of escapes, and the green sort of blood which he has in his body sort of heals itself, and we get that sort of thing of the wounds healing themselves and all that stuff. And I almost nearly sweared then, Dave, and all that stuff. Anyway, she gets wheeled off on a gurney, and Martin Sheen's character Wynn looks at her, you know, and then they just sort of drop her into like a frozen cryogenic sort of encasement. So I was thinking,
what was that? A cryogenic,
something like that. Yeah. What's it called?
Cryogenic, do you mean?
That one even, yeah. No, but no, it was a cryogenic because I'd had enough of the film. But anyway, they lower her down, and the way Martin Sheen looks at her Wynn is as if she was going to come back all conquering, all powerful. You know, later on in the film, he like looks at her as if to say, oh, she's dead. But, you know, and I kept thinking, oh, she must come back into it later. But no, she didn't. She was gone. And it was just like...
Maybe she comes back in the director's cut or the R-rated bit. Again, maybe that whole chopping up and making it PG-13 contributes to that fragmented feel of it.
Yeah, you're probably right. Maybe there was more to it. I don't know. It just looked very strange what they did. They killed her off within 40 minutes, and she looked like she was going to be the main sort of baddie against Spawn, you know, giving him a run for his money. But no, it was just really bizarre. And then obviously we then pan to Wynn, who is now in hospital with these. Well, I suppose in his no, I suppose he's not a hospital, is it? It's his experimental sort of chambers place sort of thing, and they're putting this virus on his heart, aren't they? Because he feels as if like if Simmons is going to get him or Spawn. And, you know, if he's got it on his heart, he can't, because this whole virus will just go across the world. So he thinks he's sort of got a bit of a get out of jail free card.
This Heat 16, isn't it? So if he dies, then the virus, you know, will essentially wipe out the world. Yeah,
it was just a bit, I don't know, it was just a bit weird. And then obviously the little clown Muppet then decides to reveal his hand on it. There's a battle in like a alleyway and stuff, and Spawn is there sort of, he is, you know, he's got a conscience, he's helping this young kid and his old man and all this stuff. And then the clown then decides to reveal himself as this big demon, doesn't it? And it was pretty obvious what was going on anyway. You could tell he was more than just a clown. And
yeah, I mean, they weren't that subtle with it, were they? It's a bit like, there's a few things that reminded me of a bit of Men in Black, you know, and some of the effects that, and creature designs that they'd used there. And so he kind of grows and then it becomes a bit more formidable. And then he takes a few Spawn names, doesn't he? Yeah.
It's really strange, really strange.
So what I'd say about this whole confrontation between Violator and Spawn, and I think let's think about it, right? This is the year before Blade. It's not bad, is it? The CGI? I think, you know, if you compare that to old Deacon Frost, the kind of effects there, this is a lot better, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, to be fair. It's not bad, Dave. Like I said to you, I don't necessarily think it's Spawn. His suit looks good, you know, like obviously his sort of char-grizzled body and all that. I think the effects are pretty good and his expressions come across well and all that. There's nothing, even his suit, I like the way his suit changes and all that. I really thought he was fine. I think it's just everything else. The budget seems to have just gone on Spawn, whereas everything else is a bit, I don't know, it's just not very convincing. But these characters are all right, but you can clearly see that they've been superimposed in afterwards.
It's not quite three-dimensional, is it? But it's funny, actually. You mentioned a little bit before about Spawn having the helmet on a lot. For me, it wasn't enough. For me, he did that thing that they do in hero movies. Usually, especially if it's a big actor, you kind of have to see them, don't you? So, like Tobey Maguire in Spider-Man, most of the movies got the Spider-Man outfit, but he's got his mask off. It's like, no, he's Spider-Man. Keep the mask on. So for me, Spawn should have had his helmet on a lot more than he actually did. But I didn't really feel like there was a lot of peril in this fight. Again, I wasn't bought into it. It was like, oh, okay, so we're about this point in the movie, aren't we? So, he's going to get a bit of a beat down, and he's going to have to go away and lick his wounds. I didn't really feel like he was going to be. There were any consequences to this fight.
Yeah, I agree. You knew somewhere along the line that Spawn was either going to win or get vengeance, didn't you? It was very much played by numbers, Dave. I think. I'd love to have been a fly on the wall when they were writing these sequences, because they just seem to be all over the place, didn't they? I mean, this demon, the Violator demon, he can now obviously morph himself away, can't he, as well? And we get a little. I just was like, oh, this is just rubbish.
Yeah.
I can't say any more than that. It's rubbish.
Yeah. So, but obviously, so he gets his beat down, and then he has to meet up with old Coggles, as we've decided to call him, Cogliostro. And so we get a little bit of a training montage, don't we? Now, let's face it, Chris, we do love those Rocky movies. We both love them. We love a training montage. And this was not a training montage.
No, it wasn't. No.
It was rubbish. I mean, you've got to... Again, you can't help but compare it a little bit to Rocky, and you've got the rousing music, and it's like, you see him and he's rubbish at the start. In particular in Rocky 3, Apollo Creed's teaching him the ropes, and he's rubbish at the start, and you see him as the montage goes on, he's doing the training, and he gets better and better and better. This was just flat for me.
Yeah, it was awful.
It was very by the numbers, wasn't it? Just... focus on your armor. Oh, I can't do it. No, focus on your armor. Oh, I've done it. Just, oh, God's sake.
Yeah, I agree. It was too easy. And to be fair, there was no real explanation of why he had all these chains and stuff on his body. I know the spikes come out and stuff because he's supposed to be Spawn. He's supposed to be like a mutant, isn't he? But there was no logical reason. Oh, and I must say, Dave, just going back a slight sidestep, so apologies. We haven't discussed probably the funniest bit in the film, which isn't actually supposed to be funny, is when he fights against that woman, Jessica Priest, on the stairs in that before he kills her. And she goes to knee him in the privates, and then he pulls out from nowhere the old Batman 66 utility belt, grabs her leg from nowhere. That is just awful. Oh, I was laughing my head off. I had to put it back again to watch it. I was like, is that really just happened? Because it also looked like he'd got a bit excited, and I just couldn't, what I mean? It was not.
Yeah, I'd completely forgotten about that, quite honestly. And I take back, I was saying it was in the movie too many times when he gets shot or something, and he'd discover a new part of his powers, and he'd go, "Oh yeah."
Yeah, I just don't get.
Well,
that
actually, I think there should be one more in it. So, in that bit where this little thing, stops her kicking in between the legs, actually having it there would have been perfect. So his little thing comes out to grab the leg. Oh yeah.
She didn't have leather pants on, Dave. So yeah. I mean, I'm saying privates. Let's say it right. You've got to kick him in the balls, won't you? That's the PC version. But yeah, it was. It's just terrible.
Dick Grayson.
Yeah, the old Dick Grayson. Yeah. But it was awful, and I was like, oh God, it was. I mean, this what's he called? Coggy. What are we calling him?
Coggles.
Coggles. I mean,
Coglio.
the name didn't mean anything. It didn't. There was no weight behind this old bloke. And then there was a section after he's done his training where he did the old classic, training montage, like the mentor bit. Now the tests have finished, or something like that. It was like, oh, what is this? Awful dialogue and awful. It wasn't like you say. It wasn't even a training montage. You know what I mean? It was just poor. We're not talking Yoda and Luke Skywalker here. We're talking, I don't know, Fozzie Bear and Kermit the Frog. I think it was just terrible. It was just, yeah. He didn't even need to be in the film. This guy, I don't think.
Yeah.
Awful.
On to the finale then. So, of course, again, I have to say, going into this, just don't ever really feel that there's any peril there. Now, what I would say, so, you've got his mate, and when you find out his mate's married his wife, you kind of think he's the bad guy, don't you? And but he just seems like he's in that position. So he does try to redeem himself later on. But so this Terry, he's trying to send off an incriminating email to a newsman, and Wynn sort of destroyed his computer and everything, and taken the family hostage. And basically when Spawn arrives there, he's sort of he's gone to kill Wanda, hasn't he? And actually, probably the one bit that I had forgotten and did surprise me a little bit is where Wanda turns out to actually be the Violator.
Yeah.
I didn't actually see that coming, but I didn't really care either.
I think I did see it because I thought it was a bit cheap the way she got killed. So I must admit,
yeah, it was odd, wasn't it?
Yeah, I sort of knew that it wasn't her, if that makes sense. But then the double sort of Joker card was she then appeared straight after in the same position, but obviously on her knees this time in chains. It was just a bit. No, I mean, one thing was quite funny was the Violator licks her face. And all of a sudden, this sort of, supposed saliva appears on her chin. And I was looking thinking, that looks terrible because...
Bit of a something about Mary thing.
Yeah, he licked her. Nothing was there. And then all of a sudden, this sort of like white... Yeah. That's probably what I say here. But this white saliva stuff just appeared on her chin, dangling down. I was like, oh, that looks really bad. It didn't like go in the context of the lick, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It was, yeah. Yep, it was. That's all I can say. But yeah, I don't know what more to say, Dave. Really, I mean, we get the battle. Spawn escapes, Donny, with Coggy, whatever we're calling him, Coggles, and this is all before what's he called, Male Bolger's forces.
The demon.
Yeah. Well, but Dave, let's be honest here. Did you not find it utterly bizarre that the demon spoke like Dr. Claw off Inspector Gadget, which I think it was the same actor, but his voice, his actual mouth never moved. It was just a generic horse-like devil, wasn't it? That was just like his mouth was open, just wading from side to side. His jaw wasn't moving or anything, and I kept thinking, this is awful.
It was a bit Dark Crystal, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It just looked odd,
It didn't make sense. I mean, he was definitely Inspector Gadget, the baddie off Inspector Gadget, without a doubt. It's the same voice, but I couldn't be bothered even looking to see if it was Dave. It was just pretty rubbish, really.
Yeah,
I mean, It's a shame because I think the Spawn idea, like you said, watching it in 2019 next year for the new version, if it does actually come out, would be quite interesting to see, because I think there's a lot of potential there in the character, Dave. I really do.
Yeah.
I just think they go down the route of R-rated because we know we can get away with it now because of stuff like Deadpool and that. I know that's more because it's on the crude side, but you go down that route, but you've got potential there to have a lot of dark and nasty battles where it's just, I don't know. It's just weird.
Yeah, it is weird, and I agree. There's a huge amount of potential there, but they fell well short with this one. But again, as part of that fight, they kind of escape, don't they? And Spawn declares, he's never going to lead, this demon's forces, and because we never really felt like he was, again, just not really any it didn't come across that there was any hard choice there, did it? You know, he seemed like
Yeah.
a good guy. He was given all these powers, and he's still a good guy, and doesn't have to make a hard choice at all. But after he's escaped, you know, the old Violator turns up in his hulked out form, and you know, they have a repeat fight of earlier in the movie, but of course Spawn's, you know, he's had his mini training montage, and you know, he comes out on top there.
Yeah. I don't know, Dave. It wasn't exactly, you know, a kickboxer or something. Van Damme's comeback after Tong Po, you know, did his brother, or we get, you know, like a sort of a down on your luck superhero who's, you know, basically, you know, I suppose I was totally wrong what I just said. Or The Dark Knight Rises, Batman gets a caning by Bane and then goes off to a prison to, you know, learn some more skills and learn about himself. It's not exactly that sort of comeback, is it? It's just plods along, really.
Yeah, it just feels like by the numbers, doesn't it? It feels like, you know, that was going to happen, and it did happen. It just, I must admit, we're at the end of the movie now, and I was kind of glad.
Yeah.
But yeah, and Wynn gets arrested, doesn't he? And you know, I guess the one thing, you know, through the movie Spawn, he's been wanting to get back with Wanda. You know, that was the whole point he took on the Hellspawn in the first place. Whereas actually he comes to the realization, you know, because he does look like, now we'd say looks like Deadpool, doesn't he? But, you know, he's all kind of burnt and disfigured, and obviously got all these demonic powers, even though he's still a good guy, that, you know, he can't be part of Wanda's life anymore. So he's going to focus on fighting justice, and rather than you know, give in to his wanting and his lust for vengeance. So
exactly, and I believe the first bit of justice he did was he sought out the writer, directors, and producers and just took them all out, Dave, which I think was the best part of the film.
Now, actually, can I just say, before we go into our wrap up, when the title credits roll, that is probably my favorite bit of the movie. Now, not because it was just finished. And I know you love The Matrix, right? But I love the music, the soundtrack to The Matrix. Listen to it. I don't listen to it like every day, but you know, I like that harder edge of rock and metal and stuff. And so I think the music for this movie was bang on, to be honest.
Yeah.
And so the title credits started rolling, and then I just thought, I really like that. And I just let it roll right to the end. I thought it was really good. And I thought, you know what, if only the movie could have actually been better. I mean, think about it. Matrix was only 2 years after this.
Yeah.
If they could have got the movie to be as good as the soundtrack, then, you know, we might have had a hell of a movie. But
you know, we've done the music, don't you? Because it was actually going to be in my facts, but I didn't actually put it in the end. It was Liam Howlett from The Prodigy. He produced
right.
So what he'd done is he actually said he didn't have a lot of time, to be fair, with the actual music. He made the whole thing in about 3 days, but it was in collaboration with one of the music director, Graham Revel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's probably why you like the music, Dave. Around that time, The Prodigy were massive.
Yeah.
So yeah,
very good. Yeah. Didn't know that.
Yeah. So
okay,
are we going into the review, David?
Let's go for it.
Now, Dave, I think it could be you this week, mate.
Well, I guess it probably is, isn't it? 'Cause it seems it's you and it was you and Jamie last time, so I guess.
Oh yeah,
can't really get out of this one. And actually, you know what, Chris? I've just seen, as you were saying that about the Prodigy doing some of the music. Tom Morello was also in there as well. So, Tom Morello being the guitarist for Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah.
And so again, that I'm actually, so after this, the one good thing, you know, ignoring the fact that we'll have produced a podcast, I think I'm going to sound out this. I'm going to try and get hold of this soundtrack. I'm going to give this more of a listen, I think.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, I agree, actually, Dave, to be fair. It's probably the only shining light we've had out of this week.
Yeah. So in terms of the movie, like I say, there was a huge amount of hype around this. Spawn was absolutely huge. And as I said in the comics background, the character only hit the shelves in 1992. So if you think how long it takes to pitch a movie, get it written, write a script, get it produced, to release a film in 1997 is really fast tracking it, and probably could have benefited from slowing down a little bit, having a few more script rewrites and just putting the brakes on. But obviously people were trying to capitalize on Spawn's popularity, no doubt. So I remember watching it at the time, and it was a massive disappointment. The thing that jumped out at me again was the clown, and for me, it just drags the whole movie down. Like you say, I didn't notice at the time, I don't think, as much as I notice now how two-dimensional Martin Sheen was playing Wynn. But I certainly did this time, and he was just awful. For a legendary actor to put in a performance like that and phone it in like that is just poor, really. That's a proper shameful paycheck, isn't it? I think for me, when we talked about this, I kind of thought, I think this might be another Phantom Zone. And I think I said to you, didn't I, that actually this could be on par with Howard the Duck. And I will still endeavour. See, what I plan to do, Chris, we're in October now. We'll get a show reel together at the end of the year, and I'm going to cut out all the bits where you say movie X is the worst movie I've ever seen. And then I just managed to find one in the archives and just raise the bar a little bit, or lower the bar. So I thought I might have got it this time, but actually I haven't. It didn't get, on this rewatch, it didn't get any worse. And actually I think I appreciated, again, when you look back at some of the other movies from the 90s, I appreciated the effects that they did do, and again, it's still very early in that CGI time, isn't it? But, they weren't as terrible as I thought they could have been. So I think the effects were fine. Some of the cinematography, the way the way it looks, is fine. Like I mentioned about the soundtrack. So all of this, I think I'd gone into it thinking, this is probably going to be another Phantom Zone at the bottom there. But actually, no, I'm gonna raise it up a level. I'm going to promote it from the Phantom Zone and stick it into Hell's Kitchen. Yeah.
No, good review, Dave. Very good. Me personally, it's where to start, really. I think Spawn himself, Michael J. White, no problem. Very much an Arnold Schwarzenegger, RoboCop, as I mentioned before, type situation. Not a lot of talking. Didn't really need a lot of talking as such because obviously, there's a bit of martial arts in there, which he does use when he kicks a couple of people, and the way he's good with the guns and that. So I don't necessarily think you need that. We know that with the Terminator, that character does not need a lot of dialogue. What he says is enough as long as he's got a good supporting cast around him. Well, this film, there isn't a good supporting cast at all. Martin Sheen's channeling his inner Bane, if only he knew, 15 years later, whatever it was when it come out. You've got that stupid Violator clown, as you've said. It's the worst character I've ever seen, supporting character. It's just totally misses every joke, every step, any logical sense of why you would even find him funny. I don't get it. So he's just awful. Fitzgerald, his mate, he's just standard, weak mate sort of thing, and right-hand man, he's pretty poor. And that's it, really. I think it's a poor film, but I think the Spawn bits and the action is actually quite good. And it's definitely not a Howard the Duck, Dave. I mean, it's just the clown that ruined the whole film for me. But if it was just on the clown, then it's definitely an Asgard. And I'm going to end up doing what you've just done. But I'm going to send it to Hell's Kitchen as well. Because I think there is a good film there that's let down by a poor supporting cast. And it's not necessarily the actors. It's the writing and the directing. It's just so poorly handled with these characters that it's just not needed, some of the stuff that goes on around Spawn. It's just a shame, really, because I think the settings and the gunfights and the firefights and that are quite good. And obviously, the actual main demon is just awful. It's just a horse with hair, and his mouth doesn't even move, but he has a voice of like Dr. Clawbody. So I'm Inspector Gadget. So yeah, he's going to be Hell's Kitchen, Dave. It's just... You've not done me, and I'm not saying it again, that it's the worst film ever. I don't think anything will beat Out the Duck now. I genuinely believe that. And I know in about 3 episodes I'll be going, do you remember when I said that?
Yeah. So, very good, very good. Okay, so we're back on the same page. We haven't hit exactly the same spot, have we? And I agree. I can't help but think, again, if they'd have kept that R-rated version, and it lines up with how they envisaged it originally, flowing in terms of just an overall narrative. I can't help but wonder if there's a better movie there. But having said that, I mean, that clown is just jarring. It's not the fact that it's repulsive. You can be repulsed by characters and think, oh yeah, I love to hate them kind of thing. It just doesn't hit any kind of note. Like you say, he's trying to be funny. He's dressed up as a cheerleader at one point, isn't he?
Oh, that's awful. Oh,
it's so cringeworthy. It's like, what is going on?
Oh, oh my God. You've made it even worse now, Dave. I forgot about that. It's absolutely atrocious. He stood on a building with pom-poms in it, and
yeah.
Oh my word! If anyone hasn't seen that film, please just put it on YouTube. The pom. Oh, it's the most cringeworthy thing I've ever seen. Oh.
Yeah.
I really want to swear, but I'm not going to, Dave. Oh,
and I mentioned the Dark Crystal. The demon. He's very. Actually, it probably reminds me more of Labyrinth. Yeah, there's a few little creatures in there, and it's just like that. It's a Jim Henson job. So, yeah, I agree. It's all about the supporting cast and villains. It just really drags it down.
Yeah, it's just awful, absolutely awful. But Dave, it's a great episode to review. We say this, we love reviewing the bad films, and as much as what we've said, it's funny. And I don't know whether people listening get this, but I am sat there watching these films, thinking of you, you absolute bar steward, because you pulled it out of the bag again with something that I would never in my life want to watch again. I'll never watch it again. But it's funny because that's what the podcast is all about. So it's got to be hats off to you because you keep pulling these out of the bag, and I. And yeah, you sat there looking at the clock going, oh my God, like what I try and do, if I can't watch you one sitting, I have this thing in my head where I've got to go on the tipping point of halfway past the film. So this film is in an hour and 36 minutes, Dave, and I know every single minute.
Every second, yeah.
So I made sure that I got to like 50 minutes in the film before and then in the end I went to an hour and then I had to turn it off and watch it in 2 sittings. Now, that's when the bad. I mean, Nick Fury in that I did in 1 sitting and no problem. But some of them we've watched do you know that yourself? They are a bind. You even said this about this one. So, yeah, fantastic, Dave. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, very good, very good. So let's just give another shout out again to thecomicsbolt.com. If you want to go for your comic book movie reviews, news, get on over there. We're nice cuddly bunch. We're very inclusive. So have a look over there for all your latest news. And also shout out to the Britpod scene as well. So collective of all different British based independent podcasts.
Good stuff, Dave. Now, Dave, have you got any plugs for us, mate?
Yeah, so if you want to get yourself across to the Grassroots Coachcast, so myself and my co-host Ben, we talk about our experiences coaching youth football or youth soccer, and we'll pick a different topic each week, some of the different challenges that we have, and we'll go through those and just openly and candidly share them and what we've been going through. And so we've had some good feedback because the original intent was we just put our experiences out there thinking that, probably if anyone listens to this, probably there's a lot of people going through the same thing. And so we're getting quite a bit of feedback and validation, and that's brilliant for us. That was the whole point in us putting it out there in the first place, and helping people that may feel a bit isolated and a bit overwhelmed by the whole thing. And so yeah, get yourself over there if you want to hear about that. Chris, how about yourself?
Well, Dave, I have an announcement to make, actually. Something that has been created in the last 24 hours, actually, Dave.
You're really going to announce this now?
Yeah. Let's get
All right.
Let's get it out there. So,
you know what I was saying? I was saying the other day about, Chris, your parachute's here.
Well, Pete, to all the listeners out there, Dave knows me. We are the yin and yang together. If it was me, we would probably have about 30 podcasts and projects going on at once. But I have born a new podcast, Dave. Now, if you would like to get over to Twitter and follow Chip Daniels United, that is Chip Daniels UTD. Also on iTunes, United Sportscast. We have a new member of the Whatever Entertainment Network. He is an American, roughly American. His accent does waver sometimes. Sportscaster who follows Manchester United. And it's a 10-minute podcast weekly reviewing the week's games with a bit of transfer news and just speculation, really. So please give him a follow, or give me a follow if you recognise his voice. And also my vlogging channel, CPod78 Vlogs on YouTube. Go and have a look at the vlogs. There's a new one coming up with Vegas, which is just under 30 days until I go. So that's it, Dave. And now Dave has pulled himself off the floor and he's back with us.
Very good, very good. So I'll have another listen to the old sportscast and Chip, brother of Stormy.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And then to anyone out there, Ben, who does the chat footy with myself and Dave, and obviously does the Grassroots Coachcast with Dave, he did actually message Dave after I'd born this idea of a sportscast podcast and said, was Chris drinking? Which I wasn't. I was so cold sober. So thanks for that, Ben. Tremendous. And also,
stream of consciousness.
Exactly. Yeah, he just thinks he doesn't really know me properly, does he? I suppose. But also, Dave, one last thing I forgot to mention. What are you going to lead us out with?
Well, actually, I hated this clown. Right, it dragged down the whole movie, but there was one thing that did actually. There was a little creak of a smile, and that's because he gave a bit of an impression of one of our icons that we do love there. So I will lead out and say, "You have been violated, little girly man."
Every time somebody falls, a demon catches the wings off. Twins. Get away from me! Foul smelling magic! You don't get it. You're gonna have to dig a little deeper. Oh, come on! You scream like a girl. Do it like this.